Hi, I'm Karen.
And I'm Nancy.
And you're listening to our latest KidsmomoMO, where we give you Mo Kidsmomo.
Today we have a special video interview with the creators of the graphic novel series Joey Fly Private Eye.
So, today we're joined by author Reynolds and illustrator Neil Numberman. Their first Joey Fly book was called Creepy Crawly Crime, and today they're here in honor of the release of the second book in the series, Big Hairy Drama, which just came out in late November.
How did you guys first come up with the idea for Joey Fly Private Eye?
Aaron.
I love bugs. I have bugs all around me. In fact, I'm sitting at my writing desk and I have my giant dung beetle and my giant scorpion and my giant scarab. So anyway, I love bugs, and I think they make great characters because there's so many different kinds of them. And they each have their own personalities and physical differences and unique social things, what I think of as cultural differences. Ants are culturally different than spiders, and so I think bugs just make great characters. And before Joey Fly came around, I have 9 other books that all feature bugs as main characters. So I think about bugs a lot. So I was playing with a new bug book. Had already written a bug ninja book called Tiger Moth Insect Ninja, and was musing on the idea of a cowboy book or a superhero book, and then the first line of the book came into my brain, which was, "Life in the Bug City, it ain't easy. Crime sticks to the city like a one-winged fly on a 50-cent swatter." And I wrote that down, and boom, immediately Joey Fly was formed in my head. I knew I had a noir detective story on my hands. I didn't start out trying to write a noir detective story, but as soon as that line came tumbling out of my hands and onto the computer, then I knew I was onto something. So that's how it started for me.
And what about you, Neil? Are you a bug person as well?
Well, of course, I grew up playing with bugs, collecting grasshoppers. It was a lot of fun to research once I got the job and look up what a scorpion looks like and how many limbs it has and what I could do with the face. I originally had just kind of a happy face for Sammy, and then Reika was like, we need a little bit more on the face. And Reika was our editor, sorry. And as I looked more into scorpions, I realized they have these big fangs, so I gave Sammy fangs, and it was a lot of fun to do research because, yeah, I mean, I loved bugs growing up, so.
And neither of you are afraid of any bugs, because Nancy and I definitely have some bug phobias.
I'm absolutely afraid of bugs.
I'm terrified of spiders. I hate spiders.
Yeah.
Just like Joey is.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that different kinds of bugs have different personalities. Do you decide first on the kind of character you want and then assign them a bug that sort of works with that personality, or does it go the other way?
For me, it's a little more organic. It kind of formulates in the same way that I guess any other non-bug book would. I mean, when I was writing, Joey was immediately a fly. I don't know why he was a fly, but he just was. And Sammy was almost right away a scorpion, though I could not tell you why. In fact, there were times later, before the book was illustrated, that it seemed so funny to me and ludicrous that, a fly is telling off the scorpion, when, in scale, I mean, there are really small scorpions, but the way we think of a scorpion in scale, a fly would be, so teeny next to a scorpion. So that just added to the possibilities that, oh good, Neil gets to solve that.
Yeah.
The whole issue.
Actually, originally, Sammy was gigantic in the very first script. The way Aaron wrote it, and I actually didn't see that at first. So when I did the preliminary drawings, I was just like, oh, Sammy has to be the tiny newsboy assistant look. And it was basically only because I missed that he was supposed to be big that he ended up small, and we just left it like that. And
it works.
Yeah, and there are little baby scorpions that are this big, and since Sammy is kind of a young character, it still works, so.
And speaking of Sammy and Joey, they have very different personalities, and we were wondering if one of you is like the Joey and one of you is like the Sammy, or
I don't know. What do you think, Neil?
Well, I imagine as the writer, you're probably all of them at some point, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Fliago and some of the characters in the new book definitely come out of pieces of me with my theater background.
I base Sammy's expressions off of my nephew, who looks just like him, actually. So.
With the fangs and everything?
Yeah, with the fangs. So whenever, like, Sammy's blowing up or spazzing out, I just imagine what my nephew would do.
Does he know that, your nephew?
Yeah, actually.
That must be very flattering, in one sense, I guess.
Well, he loves the book, so, yeah, he digs it.
That's funny.
And so we at first assumed that the two of you sort of worked back and forth and would send text and illustrations back and forth to each other, but we learned recently, I think in another interview that you did, that you actually do your two parts separately. So how does that work?
Well, I write the story, and you're right that Neil and I never meet, never email really about the books, never get on the phone and talk. And in fact, didn't meet live until after the first book was already out and done. Wow. So, so I write the entire story from beginning to end, and work with my editor Reka, who was at Holt at the time, and fine tune it and get the story to where it's really, really done and complete. And I don't think it was, for the first book anyway, and until after that point that, Neil, you were brought into the picture. Is that right?
Yeah, it was. You mean after it was finished?
Yeah, after it was done, and they were really committed to it, and the whole story was done, and they were ready to look for illustrations.
Ready to go, and even edited.
Yeah.
Down. So.
Yeah, so I write it completely in isolation, and I have to get the entire story completely done before the publisher even signs on to doing it, and then that's when Neil comes into the picture with his part of the equation.
Yeah, I think the first time Aaron and I even chatted through email was after the book had been completed. Wow. Not out, but after I had finished all the artwork, and he reached out and said, "Hey, I loved it." I was like, "Hey, it was a great script." So we did it without ever even talking. And you know, Reka would pass messages back and forth, but you know, it was nice to go through her just because, well, she wants us to go through her, obviously, and they're the publishers and they're paying us, so they deserve to know what's going on. But
they don't want any conspiring secretly on the side.
Suddenly it's a different book. But I liked it because Reka knows what she's doing, so it was actually an okay process, and probably a pretty common process, I imagine, in kids' books.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it has always worked for all of my books. Is I know there's those rare exceptions like John Cheska and Lane Smith that, you know, work together from day one and then they bring a finished product to a publisher. But 99.9% of the time, it really works with the author and the illustrator never even meeting, even for graphic novels like this one. I think what sometimes people imagine is that, you know, I'm sitting over at Neil's house looking over his shoulder as he's drawing pictures saying, "Oh, Neil, no, Joey doesn't look like that. He looks like this." And there's actually a funny story that goes with that. I mean, when Reka first told me she was looking at Neil as an illustrator, she said, "I'm going to send you over some samples." And she sent me over sample sketches, character sketches of Joey and Sammy, and I think Delilah, maybe a few of the characters. And I mean, here, let me grab my copy of it. I really did not like it a lot at all. I mean, here's Joey, and here's this very close to what I got when I first got it. And if you can see, if you know the book at all, you can see he doesn't even have any pupils in his freaking eyeballs, for crying out loud. He doesn't have a mouth. So I was really concerned that the main character of this graphic novel didn't have enough facial expression to maintain a whole book as the main character. And so I just had some concerns about that. He looked very different than I imagined. And I try not to imagine because you don't have a lot of control as the writer. But he looked really different. So I had a lot of concerns. And Reka looked at me, you know, square it through the phone, and said, let us prove you wrong, because I think this guy is gold. And so I'm like, all right, fine, prove me wrong. So she went back to, I mean, you'll have to speak into this, Neil, because you were on the receiving end of it, but what she told me was she went back to Neil, she told him my concerns, and like a week later, Reika sends me sketches from Neil of Joey Fly in like 50 different emotional states, like Joey sad and Joey angry and Joey embarrassed, and then he drew 2 versions of him, one with normal pupils in his eyeballs and one with a normal mouth. Mm-hmm. And those were so not as good as his originals, and he showed so well with his sketches that he could maintain this character without all the traditional facial features. And I was like, I'm sold. And the truth is, it's better and funkier and edgier than it ever would have been if I had kind of been sitting over Neil's shoulder going, no, he needs to have pupils in his eyeballs. No, he needs to have a mouth like normal people. And that's the beauty of the process, is that you have a writer who's got a vision, but then you have an artist who's got a whole different vision, and the two together make something better than either one of them could make by themselves.
So we read that you've already begun on the 3rd Joey Fly book. Could you give us any hints on what's to come? This one has worked the same way in that Neil has not yet read the manuscript. So he doesn't know the story yet. The story is done, and we're waiting for the publishers to kind of green light it. We're still in that process with them. But Neil, you tell them what you know about it.
Well, I need to work on this book, is basically and I'll give you just the title: Joey Fly and the Haunted House Fly, right?
Yeah, Joey Fly, Haunted House Fly.
Yeah, and if it's haunted and it's got insects, and I need to do it. That's all I know. And there are some nuns in it, right?
Yeah, it's got a couple nun characters in it.
I've actually already
nuns.
started sketching. I've sketched all the characters you told me about.
So it has, it has a couple nuns in it. It has a haunted house in it. It has a big game hunter in it. It has, I'm trying to remember, orphans in it. That's all I'll say.
So I have to have a room where there's like giant bug heads hanging off the wall, like in our world it'd be like a big rhino head, but in that world it'd be like a big antlion head or something. Yeah,
it gives specific references. The main room is that's the most creepy room, is covered in heads from top to bottom. Elephant beetles and rhinoceros beetles and stag beetle heads and mounted mantises, and I think it's got a lot of potential for fun.
That would definitely be the funnest book for me to work on, because I mean, it's like every illustrator's dream to do a haunted house, and this would be almost an entire book probably taking place at least with a haunted element. And there's just so much stuff I could hide in there. And I mean, I'm already seeing so much of this book, and I haven't even read the script.
So, Aaron, even if there are scenes that don't take place in the haunted house, Neil's going to put them in the haunted house.
Yeah.
Yeah. And knowing how great he is with details. I mean, he's mentioned in other interviews how inspired he was he's always been by the Where's Waldo books, and which I read those as a kid too, and I just always... I never liked hunting for Waldo. I just liked looking at all the little scenes playing out and all the background. How masterful he is at doing that. That definitely begins to shape how I write, because I immediately begin looking for unique and funky environments to put the characters into that would give him the most opportunity to shine with that kind of stuff. So there's scenes in the subway station, and where the subway itself is actually a giant millipede that the bugs all ride on, and so there's all kinds of fun things that hopefully will inspire his imagination.
And you do have sort of a scavenger hunt going on too, because when you get to the end of the book, there's some things that you know, a list of things to look for in the illustrations. Whose idea was that? Was that you, Neil?
Yeah, I decided it's a mystery. You know, the kids can solve one mystery through the reading of the book, and then at the end they can kind of hunt for their own clues. I think I made it pretty difficult in the first book. I mean, that was the first time I'd ever done anything like that. But the second book, I think it really works well. You go back, you find characters. There's color clues in it too, so you know, it gives that element of they get to read it again in a way and look through the entire thing, and that's the point. I kind of spend a lot of time on these so that people can enjoy it twice or three times. Read the story, go back, see the clues I put in, find stuff that, you know, they're asked to find at the end.
Now we have a question for each of you, not actually related to Joey Fly. Neil, on your website we saw that you were working on a sort of secret, but you mentioned it on your website, but a secret project where you visit each of the 50 states.
Yeah.
So we were wondering if you have any stories of visits that you've made so far and what you're willing to share about this project.
Sure, yeah. Well, the project is way too ambitious, obviously. I mean, that's like the first thing anyone would think. Even, it's what I think. But the point is, I had been to 46 states by the time I was 13. So I knew the country well, and I knew what each state had to offer and the different environments, and I just absolutely loved it. What you can get from Minnesota, what you can get from Arizona, you know, just, I mean, I could create these entire worlds and environments from every state. So the idea was, well, what if I did something for each state? And I started thinking about this quick little ghost book or monster book for each state. And that would be easy and fun and a lot easier than what I'm thinking of doing. But I also want to go in the order of the states. So I started with Delaware this year. I figure if I can do one a year, I'll finish when I'm 80. So I have to start now. I can't wait. So I took the girlfriend to Delaware. It was her dream vacation, I'm sure. And we just went from top to bottom in 5 days and tried to visit some of the folklore places, the ghostly places, but also places, an environment that was only Delaware's, was exclusive to Delaware, which, by the way, we could not find. It's just beach, farm, and that's about it in Delaware.
Aaron, we read on your website that you used to train to be a professional chef before you turned to writing full-time. And so, of course, we were wondering, what's your favorite food?
Oh, man. My favorite food, that's hard because I loves me food. I would say, you know, I get asked this question by kids at school visits a lot, and I can never give them one straight answer. So I'll name three. I'll give you the answer I give kids at school visits. My number one is lasagna. And my number two is tacos. I like to cook fancy, but I also like to cook simple. So, and I can go tacos at home or Taco Bell just as easily. And then my number three favorite is a carnitas burrito from Chipotle with extra guacamole.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's gold right there.
Thank you so much to both of you for answering our questions.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I brought the Joey and Sammy dolls.
Oh, okay. I have mine here, too.
Oh. Well, why don't I just hold up Sammy and you can hold up Joey?
Okay, all right.
So he'll leave, and then he'll enter. Wait, I'm over here.
Fun with Skype. Wah, wah. Fun with Skype.
Hey, wait, stay where you
Hi.
are.
Yes, we are 8 years old.